Welcome to Pope's Plates if you're a new viewer, and welcome back if you're one of our favorite friends. We're preparing today for football. We're coming up on the college national championship and the Super Bowl in just a few weeks. And people have parties when they have football watching. So we are making today 2 dips, 2 marinades. We're going to get started with the first marinade. And because there are a lot of ingredients, I'm going to kind of use my cheat sheet. And I've got everything spread out here on the counter with all of the ingredients. There are probably 10 different things that go into this marinade. And I'm going to put it in a small countertop food processor so that we can get it blended really well. We're going to start with 1/4 cup of olive oil. This is extra virgin olive oil. Just has a nice flavor to it. And we're going to add 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar. This is going to help the chicken break down as it stays in the marinade. Balsamic vinegar has a really interesting flavor to it. This is not an incredibly expensive balsamic vinegar. I wouldn't use a really expensive balsamic in this because there are too many other flavors that would drown it out. If you're using balsamic as the main ingredient, it's worth paying the extra to get some really good. We're going to use 4 tablespoons of soy sauce. This is low sodium soy sauce, just because we do kind of monitor salt intake in our family, and we're not big fans of a lot of heavy salt. We're also going to use 4 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Hope I said that the right way. Don't frequently think of Worcestershire sauce with a chicken, but that's what this calls for. And we're going to have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I've got a good sized lemon here, and it really feels juicy. Oh, and look, absolutely no seeds in this. That's really kind of interesting. All right, I'm going to just sort of eyeball 2 tablespoons. I think half of this lemon will be plenty for 2 tablespoons. We can use the other lemon for something else later. Then we're going to do 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now let's see how. Well, trick, if you have harder brown sugar, mine is okay. But if your brown sugar dries out and gets hard, if you put a piece of bread in with the brown sugar, it will moisten itself right up and you'll be able to use it really easily. So mine seem to be okay. We're going to have a teaspoon of dried rosemary. This has already been crushed a little bit. If you use fresh, I would chop it a little bit before you actually put it in the marinade. That releases some of the flavor. Then we've got a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Well, that's not going to work. Let's do 2 teaspoons. That gets us what we need to have. I'm going to put in 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Again, we do not use as much salt as some people do. Going to put in 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and then a teaspoon of garlic powder. That's the final thing that we add, and we've got mustard all over our teaspoon, so let's just use the half one. All right, that does it. Now let's blend this up. You'll have to forgive the noise a little bit. Well, Jennifer said it's not plugged in, so plugging it in would be the best thing to do. Okay, there we go. That looks perfect. What we're doing is really just dissolving the brown sugar and making sure that everything is mixed up together. So I think that looks, the consistency of it is just fine. The rosemary is floating a bit on the top, but that's okay. I'm going to get the container to put this in because when we cut the chicken up, we're going to actually immerse the chicken pieces in this marinade. And actually, this can also be an additional sauce. If you add a cornstarch slurry to the marinade that's left over, you're going to cook it, so it's going to be safe after having had the chicken sit in it. But it can make a very thick and good extra sauce for your chicken. But I'm going to get the container to put the marinade in. Okay, I've got this in the little blender now. I'm going to pour it into the container that I'll put the chicken in. And this is deep enough so that the chicken is going to be able to be submerged. I'm going to set this container aside because it's dirty. I'll have to wash it before we can use it again. And I'm going to go on to the second marinade, which is based in yogurt. So I will get that together and get it ready for preparation, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back for marinade number 2, and this one is based on non-flavored Greek yogurt. Now we've got the yogurt here in our cup. It's a 1 cup of yogurt. That gives a real bitey kind of taste, I think. Now, that's not the right word. Maybe I'm not sure what that word is, but at any rate, yogurt is a great flavor for a marinade. Get that off my thumb here. Tangy is a good word. Thank you, Jennifer. Then we also have 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And again, we're using the extra virgin olive oil. Ooh, that would have been a little more than I intended to put in there, but there you go. Calls for 3 cloves of garlic. We are using garlic from a jar. I have got some, but it's frankly the garlic that I have is not great. So I'm using the equivalent of 3 cloves of garlic from the already prepared garlic. We use a teaspoon of turmeric. That gives a really bright color to the marinade. We're going to use a teaspoon of ground cumin, which is kind of this is the coriander. We're going to use a teaspoon of coriander, and we also are going to use a teaspoon of cumin. Well, I don't have that much of that. There we go. There we go. Okay, that's enough. I do have the cumin. Let me step away for a second and get that cumin. This is kind of a messy day. I call myself being organized, and not so much. So we're going to have a half teaspoon of cumin. That's a very Mexican flavor, which is going to be interesting with some of our sauces that we're going to make. And we're going to have smoked paprika. We'll have a teaspoon of that. This is about a teaspoon of everything. Teaspoon of the smoked paprika. We're going to have our half teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of pepper, and some chili powder. Where was that? I don't know that I've got the chili powder. Oh, yeah, I do. There we go. Not paying attention again. All right. There we go. That is a lot of stuff into one marinade. I've got a whisk. I'm going to whisk it up. The olive oil helps the yogurt sort of loosen up a little bit. This is a thick marinade. So when we put the chicken pieces in it, we're really going to have to turn those chicken pieces over to make sure that each piece is covered. And then when we cook the chicken later, we're going to have to make sure that we shake off some of this because it could burn. All right, I've got another container here to put the marinade in. And you can see as I put it in here how very thick this marinade is. Okay, that got just about all of it from the bowl. And it really is thick. So we'll have to be really careful when we get the chicken and cut that chicken up to make sure that it's covered. I had cut up most of the chicken already before I put it in the marinade. I'm cutting up the balance of the breast into chunks. They're not great big chunks because it does take a bit for a breast to cook, but I'm cutting it up into pieces that we can put on our skewer. I'm going to put the balance of this into the yogurt-based marinade, and we're going to marinate this overnight. And we'll come back to you tomorrow after it's marinated, and we'll skewer it and cook it. We'll see you then. Okay. All right, we are now in day 2 of our preparation, and we're skewering on skewers that have been soaked in water so that they don't catch fire. We're skewering the chicken breast. We're going to put maybe 3 pieces on a skewer. Not too much, because remember, this is to be sort of bite size when you're having your football watching party. This is the yogurt based marinade. And you don't want to have too much on there, but I found that this is really hard to shake off, particularly when it's cold. So you might want to let it warm up a little bit. It might be easier to get some of the marinade off, but this is not heavily marinated, coated. All right, there's that one. I think I've got enough to do one more. Ooh, that's a pretty big piece of chicken. Maybe that's too big. It's a shame we don't have smell-o-vision. This marinade smells so good. All right, there's 3 of those. I'm going to rinse my hands off real quickly to get the marinade off before I do the other skewers. This marinade is more Mexican, sort of inspired. There's cumin in this marinade, and that's definitely a Mexican food spice. Really good flavor. Okay, 3 on that skewer. Yeah, good plan would be to let this warm up. This marinade's cold, just right out of the refrigerator. Okay, one more. All righty. There we go. So we've got 6 skewers ready to go. Put them on a smokeless grill. This was a grill that was given to me as a gift to be used indoors. If you have an outdoor grill, absolutely use it. We do not, so we're using the indoor grill, and we'll put these on there and see how they do. We'll be right back. Our grill has heated, and we're going to place the skewers on the grill. This is going to give them good hash marks. Can you hear that? Now I will say the marinade that's the yogurt based can burn pretty easily. So you want to keep an eye on those when you first put them on there and make sure that they don't burn too much. Now we have a choice. We can either lower the top of the grill here, which holds the heat in, or we can leave it open. I think we're going to leave it open until we turn them and make sure that they're not burning. I'm beginning to turn these over for the first time, and we may turn them again a second time. Oh, beautiful grill marks on that one. Yeah, and these with the yogurt base do stick a little more. That one doesn't want to give up at all. Beautiful grill marks on that one. And I'm going to have to work a little bit on those. Ooh, pretty. Now let's see if I can get this one loose. But frankly, it's good to know that these stick. So you want to really keep an eye on them. These are chicken breast pieces, so it's going to take them a little bit longer to cook than it would if you're using, say, thighs, which have been cut and deboned. So we're going to leave these on for a little bit longer, and we'll check on them again in a few minutes. The first of our dipping sauces is going to be honey Dijon mustard sauce, and it starts with a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball this as it goes in. You also have a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. Well, that's not going to get in there. I'll have to get a smaller spoon. That's about going to use up my Dijon mustard. That's all right. I've got a little bit more in the freezer. Also, a 1/4 cup of honey. And honey tends to stick when you don't use it very often. So let's get it going here. There we go. Oh, goodness. 1/4 cup of that. And then we're going to add in about a tablespoon of white wine vinegar. Just a touch of paprika. I'm just going to get kind of a little bit on my fingers. That's good enough. A little salt, a little pepper. And this recipe calls for just a little bit of prepared mustard. You can leave this out if you want to. This is optional. I'm going to put in maybe the equivalent of a good teaspoon, and that's it. And then we're going to mix this up really, really well. I think what I'm going to do is use the whisk. That seems to work a little bit better in getting things really mixed up well. And this is going to go into a container in the refrigerator where it will sit overnight too, because we're going to have it ready when we have our chicken skewers that are grilled. So I've got a container to put this in. We'll add this to our various containers in the refrigerator, getting ready for our football watching party. Okay. It's not a lot. You might even want to, if you've got a lot of skewers, you might want to double this recipe, which is easy to do. It's not hard at all. All right, I'm going to rinse this off and get the ingredients for the next dip. This next dip is buffalo chicken dip. It has buffalo aioli in it. The recipe itself calls for a full cup of buffalo aioli. I'm not sure that my family could tolerate a whole cup, so I'm adjusting it downward a little bit. But you start with a softened brick of cream cheese in your food processor. You're going to put onion, and I'm not going to cut this up really, really small because the blender or the food processor is actually going to do a lot of the work for us, but I don't want it in huge chunks either. So I'm cutting it a little bit and putting that in along with the cream cheese. Calls for a clove of garlic. My garlic is really, really small, so I'm going to add actually 2 small cloves of garlic to the food processor. And again, you don't need to cut this up really finely because it's going to blend in itself. Then we're going to take about a teaspoon of cumin. And this is a sort of a Mexican spice. You can really smell it. It smells wonderful. And about a half a cup of the aioli. This is going to make it a beautiful color. This is kind of an orange color. Half a cup I think is probably going to be great for my family. But feel free to use the whole cup if you've got the stomach for it. I'm going to blend this before I add the cheddar cheese in. We'll pulse it to get it started, and then I'll blend it until it's really pureed. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and add the salt. A little, maybe half a teaspoon of salt. About a half a teaspoon of pepper. I'm going to pulse it again a few times. And we're going to add the equivalent of a cup of cheese, cheddar cheese. Now, I was listening to another YouTube channel, and the gentleman that was doing the cooking made a really good point. If you use the pre-shredded cheese, it has an additive that keeps it from clumping together. If you really want a perfect blend of cheddar, I'd use block cheese and grate it yourself. I didn't have block cheese, so we're using the pre-shredded. And it goes into and mixes in completely. I'm going to scrape down the sides a little bit of this because there's some that's caught around the top. We don't want that to happen. We want it all to be blended in well. I think that looks absolutely beautiful. Very pale orangey color. It's going to stay in the refrigerator too overnight, and we will have an opportunity for all of these flavors to blend well. And this is going to be, actually this will really be good with chips too, but it's intended to go on the chicken skewers when we cook those. I'm going to get this in the refrigerator, sort of clean up my mess, and we have one more sauce to prepare, which is a peanut sauce, which is also a great dipping sauce for the chicken. We'll be back in just a minute. The third sauce we're doing today is a Thai peanut sauce. And this is made with creamy peanut butter. I guess you could use the nutty kind if you wanted to, but you've got about a third of a cup. And again, I'm sort of eyeballing this. To get started, and we're going to have a quarter teaspoon of ginger. You can either use fresh ginger that you've grated, or you can use the powdered ginger. If you use the fresh ginger, it's a half a teaspoon. If you use the powdered, it's a quarter teaspoon. Goodness, making a mess here. We're also going to have about a tablespoon of maple syrup, which gives an interesting sweetness, I think, to this. That's about a tablespoon. We're going to have a couple of tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce. As we said before, we like the low sodium because we, as a family, are kind of cutting back on our salt. You're going to add a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of rice wine vinegar. Is that a teaspoon of rice wine vinegar? That's not a lot. That's close enough. And we've toasted some sesame seeds. We're going to put in the equivalent of about a good tablespoon of toasted sesame seeds. And to loosen this up a little bit, because the peanut butter is pretty thick, we're going to add just a little bit of hot water, up to about 1/4 cup. But we're going to add it a little bit at a time until we get it the consistency that we want it to be. I'm going to scrape the peanut butter off into the bowl here. And I'm going to get the hot water from the stove. We're going to add just a little bit to get it going. And we'll add more as we need it. I'm going to look at this. It looks like it still has a little bit of a chunk of peanut butter in it. Not much. I'm going to add just maybe another teaspoon of the hot water. You don't want to add it too much because that'll really make it runny. All right, that looks like a beautiful consistency. I'm going to take the blade out. I've got sort of a spatula thing here. I'm going to scrape down the sides to get all of the sesame seed blended in. And we too have got a container to put the peanut sauce in. This would be easily doubled if you want to do that. I would suggest that when you serve it with your chicken that you do have it warm, because the peanut butter is going to get solid again. There's not enough liquid in here to make it completely liquid all the time. So I think you probably want to heat it up a little bit when you actually have your barbecued skewers for them to dip in. Pretty. You can see the sesame seeds in it. You could also, if you wanted to, just to make this a little dressier, add a little bit of green onion to the top when you actually are serving the chicken skewers. I've been looking at all of these sauces. The Thai peanut sauce is a little thick, but again, you heat this up and it's going to be more liquid. The honey mustard is already a liquid, which is going to be easy to dip the chicken in. The buffalo aioli dip is really pretty thick, and I think you might want to consider either serving this with chips, which would certainly be fine, or taking a portion of it and adding another good cup of yogurt, which would really thin it out. And frankly, I've tasted this and it's pretty hot even with half a cup of buffalo aioli in it. A whole cup would knock your socks off. So to thin this up, I'd add a little bit more of the yogurt, and it would help the hotness of the buffalo aioli dip as well. Just a suggestion. We have finished our chicken skewers, bite-sized pieces, great for your football party. We also made 3 dipping sauces. One is a Thai peanut sauce, one is honey mustard, and one is a buffalo aioli sauce. Now, we actually had this sauce made and it was pretty thick, so we thinned it out with some half and half and mixed it up really well. These are perfect to dip into one of your dips and have a great flavor. Please let us know whether you like this recipe in the comments below, and tell us who your favorite football team is. We're big Tennessee fans, but let us know who you love. If you will, subscribe to our channel, and until we see you next time, let's keep cooking.